Welcome back to part 2 of building our header for this Synergy corporate theme. So now we have our logo and our menu. We also have to create this search area here and make everything responsive. So we're going to do that now. So let me pop back up here and we will copy and paste this little comment here and create a new area called something like search. So first thing up, we'll create the icon for the search trigger, and we'll call this just search trigger. So if I give that just a quick border, and now let's add that into the markup. So it's inside the wrapper and it's just at the end of the navigation. So we'll pop it in here. So we'll create a span element and give it an ID. Oh, give it an ID of search trigger. And we'll just pop something in there just to see if it shows up, which it does. That's cool. So now get rid of that, and search trigger now needs to be styled. So what I'm going to do is again utilize the themify library and use one of their icons here. So if I search for search, we can see we have this icon here, and I'll just get the ASCII code, copy that, and go back into our CSS, and we'll just leave it down here for the moment. So search trigger, and then we will add it in via a pseudo element, something like before. And that ASCII character will be added into the content rule. And then again, we'll add the font family of themify. Themify. Just like that, I think. So let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so now we just need to style this guy now. And what I'm probably going to do is, I'll give ourselves a little bit more space here just by expanding the browser window. Okay, so let's pop back in here. So search trigger, and we'll say something like, give it a padding of say 1 rem, just to see where we're at. Okay, cool. We'll give it a pointer value for the cursor. So we get that little hand when we hover over it. And we'll have to give it a bit of padding, or sorry, a bit of margin maybe to the left as well. So say 1 rem. Yeah, cool. Okay, again, we're going to give it a border radius because we want to style it like this here, like we hover over the home or the pricing, etc. So we'll have a gray background with rounded corners, and that's what we want for the search icon too. So we'll say border radius, and let me see, need a transition as well. We'll use this. So if I give it a background color, not there in the parent. Okay. Search trigger. Oh, we put it in the wrong place. So we'll put that up here. Yep. Great. Get rid of that border. Yeah. Okay. So now what we're going to do is say, instead of the background color, we'll get rid of that. We'll say when we hover over this, we want it to change only then. So hover and background color var, and I think it's lighter gray. So let me see, clients. Yep. And the transition is in the wrong place as well. Now, yep. Okay, so we just need to, just kind of make that a little bit bigger. Probably a little bit darker too. So let's change the color first. Let's say color is body text, which is the same as these guys here. And that's it. Yeah, that looks better already. And let's change the font size to maybe 2 rem and see what we get there. So font size 2 rem. Zoom out. Yeah, maybe 2.2. I think that's okay. That looks good to me. And I'm just seeing if everything's kind of lined up here, which it seems to be. Yeah. Okay, I think we're done for that part there. So we have our icon now, and the next part is, I'll probably make this mobile responsive, this menu here, maybe. Actually, no, do you know what I'll do first? I'll actually, because we're building the search area, I'll just continue on and build a little form. So I think I'll do that next. So pop back in to index.html, and just below the search trigger, I'm going to add in our form. So I'll create something like, I'll give it a wrapper and call it ID search form wrapper. Where does that show up? Just behind us here. Okay. Okay, so inside of our search form wrapper, we're going to create a form. Just like that. And we'll give the form an ID and call it search form. Yeah, I think we just need that for the moment. We don't have to add in all the methods and actions for the moment because it's just a static website and this is just really for show. Anyway, so next up, we'll add in the input fields and we'll say input text, give it a placeholder value. I'll say something like search our website, ... Close that, save. Yep. So now we've got this nice little search box. Let's give it an ID also of something called search. And I think that's it for the moment. Okay. And then we need a button to actually click it. So I'm going to give it a button, give it a little button area here. And inside it, I'll say something like span. Okay, so then I'll give it an ID of something like, I guess we could use the TI class, which is the TI-search as per the Themify website we just looked at. So if I save that. Oh, sorry, change that to a class. Oh yeah, there we go. So that's correct. So we've got our button, we've got our search box here, we've got the search trigger that will show these, that bring these into view. We need a way to close it. So I'm going to add it probably here to the left. So I'll create a new kind of fake button for this. So I'll create another span and I'll call this close search. Let's just pop something in there for the moment. There's a little X. Okay, great. And actually, I'll probably just add in the Themify icon or the class here straight away. So again, going back here. Okay, so it's just TI close. So if I just type in TI-close, save that. And now we've got this here. Great. I think that's it for the moment here, for the markup at least. Search trigger, search form. Yeah. So I guess we just need to kind of style this now. Yeah. So back into our CSS for this area here, we need to concentrate on the form. Now, the form, obviously doesn't have any kind of generic styling yet. So what I'll be doing, I think, which, well, I will be, is I'm going to, I'll fix that there. I'm going to create a little area here, because this is the area where we're going to create classes for general HTML elements and stuff like that. So we got HTML body or wrapper, and then I'm going to create an area here called forms. So these will be kind of the general style of form elements and stuff like that. So form, yep, great. So I think that's what I'll do. So basically I'm going to create some kind of generic styling here for forms, and then I can always overwrite them here in our search area. Tweak the colors and sizes and stuff like that. So just for the moment, and to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to hide the main navigation menu. And now we just have this area here. So I'll style this guy now and do this down here. So we've got search form, which is the form element. So I'll create it here and I'll say search form and make it display flex. Okay, great. And then so this is now flex. Let's center align the items. So align items center. Yeah, that looks good. So everything's kind of brought in line here. Yeah, so that's that part there. Just create another little comment area here. Form. Yeah. Okay, so we've made this flex now. So I'm going to actually, I need to create some generic kind of styling here. So in our form area, again, we're going to create stuff like inputs, and we'll further specify that as in type equals, I think there's, yeah, that's it. I think that's the way it goes. Yep. So we'll further specify that just only for text input fields. So we don't want checkboxes or anything like that. We don't affect that styling. So again, another quick check with our red pixel border. And that is fine. That's good. So instead of red, we're going to say something like border 1 pixel solid. Well, let's have a look at our global options here. Let's say body text. Oh, I didn't close it. Save that. Zoom in a bit. Probably a bit too dark. Okay. So instead of body text, let's say gray looks okay. And what color is gray? There you are there. Gray is this guy. Yeah, I think that looks a lot lighter, looks better. A bit more subtle. As opposed to like a harsh black. So we'll do that. We'll leave that there, I think. So we'll give it a border of gray, and we'll say, give it a width of 100 pixels because I let the parent element dictate the actual size. And the size is, I guess, search form wrapper. So if I said something like 250 pixels. Yeah. Okay, so it's fine for the moment anyway. So we've got our border, give it a width of 100%. Let's give it a padding of 1 rem, which is 10 pixels. Zoom out a bit. Yeah, it's starting to come together, I think. And then we need to change the size, I think, of this. So we'll say font size to rem. Actually, I'll use shorthand here because I want to include the font family as well. So I'll say okay, copy and paste the font family of our main font. And we'll pop that in here. So font to rem, red hat, and the backup is just sans serif. That's probably a bit too big. Let's say 1.8 rem. Yeah, I think that's okay. Again, we can always tweak these as we progress, but for the moment that looks good, I think. So I think that's okay. These guys are fine for just to have some generic styling. Gonna leave that there for the moment. Actually, I'll get rid of this red pixel border. We don't need any more. Now let's go back down so we can actually tweak our sizes and stuff. So now let's create a new rule or a rule set for our inputs. Okay, so let's give it, first of all, give it a border radius. I'm actually not sure if the border radius should be global, but we can always fix it later. For the moment, it's fine. So give it a border radius of borrad. Save that. And we are getting there. That looks pretty good. So a nice 5 pixel border or 0.5 rem border. So let me create something here. Let's create a height here. So this is 45 pixels. Yep, it's pretty spot on. So say 45 pixels. And that's fine for the moment. Now we want to style this button. So copy and paste the input, paste that. And change the height to the height of the input there. So it all lines up nicely. So again, as it's a button, I'm going to add in the cursor pointer style. So once we hover over, we get that nice hand. So it shows that it's clickable. Height, border radius, cursor. And I'm not sure if it has any inherent padding, which it does. Okay, let's just strip that back there. And I'm going to make this absolute. So that pushes that to the left, which is fine. We're just going to put it back with the help of our right styling, right 0. And now we're probably, let me see. Yeah, I need to make this width a bit bigger, obviously. So I will say width maybe 40 pixels. Yeah, that looks good. So up to this point now, we're creating all the styling on this button, which is fine. But what I'd like to do is, so this button here, actually, let me first add in the background color. So let's say something like, the secondary color will be used, I think. Yeah. So as these styles will be used on many different elements throughout the website, such as like link buttons and stuff like that, or like just links, but they will look like buttons. I'm going to create some of these rules in its own little area. So let me pop back up here to our utility classes, and I'll just create a generic class called btn. But also I will target the button area too, and I will pop these guys in now. And well, I'll get rid of width and height because it has to be kind of flexible. So border radius is fine. Cursor pointer, yes. Padding, yeah, we probably need to add in some padding just for future buttons. So I'm going to say just one rem, 10 pixels all around. And then let's say I'm just going to give it a font family of our main font, which is Red Hat Display. Just to definitely make sure that it displays the correct font. Sure, let's add in a little sans serif as well. Okay. So then let's add in a text decoration of none. As this will be used on links, as I say. So save that. The color, oh yes, okay. So we need to give it a color of white. Okay, so we can see that's changed there. Give it a border of 0 because there is no border on these buttons. Perfect, okay. And probably give it a font size of 18 pixels or 1.8 rem. Save that, and that's beginning to look pretty tasty. I think that's pretty it for the moment. Oh, probably need to give it a transition as well because, yeah, the links kind of will have a little hover effect on them. So let's say transition all 0.2 seconds and ease in, ease out, or ease in, out. Okay. Oh, we do need to get rid of this because that is specific to our own button. And anything else? No, don't think so. Color, position. Oh, absolute as well. We don't want to make it absolute globally. So I think that's pretty much ready there. If not, we can come back to it, but that's a pretty good starting point. So back down to our specific search button. These guys are in, it's absolute, it's right. Yeah. So I guess instead of border radius, we just need to change instead of making it fully rounded, we'll just chop these guys off here and make it rounded here. So it's one kind of fluid element. So I'll say top left, 0, top right, normal, bottom left, nothing, 0 pixels, and at the end we'll add a border radius. Close. 1, 2, 3, which is 0. Oh, maybe it goes around. Hang on, let me replace these. Yeah, that's it there. So top left, top right, and then it works its way around. So bottom right and left, bottom left. Okay, so zoom out a bit. That looks pretty good. So let's concentrate now on the width of this search area. And we haven't actually made that yet, because here we've got a wrapper called search form wrapper, and then our form, which is search form, and that's this guy here. So let's pop this in now above this, and search form wrapper. And again, some scaffold action. Yep. I'll just indent these guys in here a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to make this absolute here because we can still see this button here, the trigger. And when I make it absolute, that should cover it. So let's do that now. Let's give it a position of absolute. Save that. That will push that to the left. And then we just need to, well, first off, let's give it a width. Let's say something like 400 pixels. Yeah. And then let's push it over here now. So let's say right 0 pixels to the wrapper, I believe. Yes, so it's absolutely positioned to the wrapper, so it'll push itself against this. And the wrapper is just there. So we'll need to push the wrapper in by 15 pixels to make it flush. Yeah. And the wrapper is there. So that's looking good, I think. Looks good from here anyway. So that's fine. Okay, that looks good. So let's push this little span elements to the left a little bit. So let's create an area here called close search. And let's say margin right, something like 15 pixels. Yep. And again, let's make sure we can click it, or make it seem that we can click it by saying cursor pointer. Just like that. Okay. So again, if we remove this now, it's kind of obscuring this button here, which is fine. We don't need to remove this when we go live, you know, with the JavaScript. I think it's fine, just hidden behind the form here. So we'll leave that. Get rid of the scaffolding. Save that. So let's bring back our menu and let's make this mobile responsive and hook up this trigger here and make this all work. Okay, so popping back into our area for the primary nav, let's get rid of display none, bring that back there. Now the search wrapper obviously is visible. So back again we go, which is here, search form wrapper. Okay, so I'm just going to make this opacity 0 and change the visibility to hidden. Save that, and now it's gone. So the idea is, again, once we click this, then the menu will show, and then we might want to kind of hide this navigation menu too. So do we need to add anything else here? Yes, we do. We need to add a transition in, or else it's just going to kind of come into view like straight away instantly. So again, there we go. We can just copy and paste this, transition all. Save that there. I think that's it. Position absolute 400 pixels, right? Okay. And if we have a look at it here real quick, search form wrapper, opacity, visibility. Yeah, okay, that looks fine from here. Okay, so bring this down a bit. So next step, let's actually create some JavaScript, I think, to show and hide this search form wrapper. Okay, so beginning the kind of main.js script, we're going to hide the search form, well, toggle it. So what we're going to do first is, well, let's create a little area for this. Just like that, and we'll call it trigger search form in header. Okay, so let's create a function called something like trigger search form. And what we could do is, because we'll be creating some JavaScript functionality here, we could actually add these into like an external script, another script called something like functions or something like that, and then just pull in our main kind of our caller functions from here, something like this. But as it's a kind of small website, I'm just going to bang everything in one script here called main.js. So I'll run this straight away, and just to make sure it's all set up, let's run a console.log. So this is run straight away, and let's see. Yeah, so that's running fine. So get rid of that. So let's create some variables first. So let's create a variable for the search trigger. And we'll say something like document dot get element by ID. And I think this is just called search trigger, which it is. So search trigger. And then we'll copy and paste that. And what else do we need? We need to target the form, which is search form wrapper. Go away. Okay. So let's call this search form wrapper. And again, search form wrapper. That is what it's called. It is, yes. Okay, I think, no, I think let's just go. Oh, we need, obviously, yeah, sorry. We do need our close search area. So let's call this just close search. And this is just called close search. Fine. I think that's it for the moment. So yeah, we can make do with those. So let's actually delete. So let's actually trigger the search or toggle it. So once we click, what do we want to do actually? So we want to click this button here. We want to possibly hide this menu, which I'm thinking more about now, but we can do that in a moment. But what we want to do is to toggle the search form area, which currently now it's hidden. So we want to hide that. Sorry, you want to show that and hide it. So toggle it and possibly hide this menu here. Yeah. So let's do that now. So once we have our search trigger here, which is in a nice little variable. So we'll do something like, let's say search trigger dot add event listener. That's the one. And we wanted people to click it. So we'll add the event click handler and we'll give it a function. And first off, again, I'll just add a little console.log statement. So console is here. Click this and it's linking up fine. So get rid of that. Quite a few ways to do this as well. What I generally like to do myself is not hide it or show it or hide it specifically in JavaScript. What I'd like to do is, where are we? Here we go. So maybe add a class here. So I'll add and remove a class or toggle a class, and I can probably do it that way. So maybe like an active class or something like that. So for example, let's say search form wrapper. Once we click that, we want to class list dot add. And let's say we want to add the active class. So here it is here. Let me zoom in a bit. Once we click the trigger, and then it adds active, which is great. So let's just add that into our CSS real quick. Here we have it hidden, the search form wrapper. Let's make some space. So let's say once the search form wrapper has an active class, let us do the opposite of two of these rules here. And let's say opacity is 1 and visibility is visible. So let's test that out real quick. So if I click this now, yeah. So that's why we added a little transition area too. So if we get rid of this, actually, let's refresh. So if I got rid of this transition rule and I clicked search trigger, it's like instantaneous. So the transition makes it a nice smooth kind of fade in. And looking here, I think we do need to get rid of the menu because it's a little bit too obscured. It's just a bit messy. So let's work on that in a little bit, but so far so good. Now let's, once we click this close option here, we obviously want it to, fade out again. So let's do that now. Back into our JS here. And I'll create a little area down here called close search. Now, what I probably should be doing is spreading these little functions out. But as it's a small website and it's a small little script, I'm just going to kind of whack it in here into this trigger search form. And I think that should be okay. So create an area called close search. And as we have a variable here, let's do that now. And again, let's add in, actually, I'll just copy and paste up here. Let's add in another click event handler. So close search, which is this little span here, click function, and then we can run some code. Again, I'm just going to test it, see is it linking up. So go into the console here, click this, and yeah, it's linked up, just dandy. So get rid of that now. So what I'm going to do is, yeah, so I will create a little area down here somewhere. So I'll copy and paste this commented area here, and I'll create something like close search, something like that. So let's create another function called remove search form, something like that. Test this here. So I'm going to pop this function in here. So once we click the close search button, or the span element, which is a faux button, we're going to run this function just down here that we just created, called remove search form. And currently now it's just console.logs. So let's see if this is connected, which it is. So now this is connected and it's on its own. We can say something, oh, get rid of that. So we can say something like document.get element by ID, and we'll say search form wrapper, and we'll say dot class list dot remove, which is it's active. So we'll just say remove the class that is active. And let's see if this works here. So click this. It's given the class active, so it fades in, and we click this close search option and it removes it. And we can do this all day, and that's great. So works quite nicely. Something I noticed that's just kind of on my travels over the years is that it's very handy if you're clicking a search kind of button to open a panel, maybe put your cursor inside it. So instead of clicking here and then clicking here, let's just focus it into the input area. So click, and then our cursor is automatically going to kind of go in there. Then we can just type in something and hit enter. So let's add in this little piece of functionality now. So up here, we want to target this area. Let me zoom in a bit. So let's say something like search trigger, click that event, yes, search form wrapper.classList, and down below here, let's just say something like focus input. So let's grab the ID here. So document.get element by ID, and it is, I think it's just search. Let's open it up here. And the input is called ID search, yes. So let's say get the ID search, and let's just say focus. Yeah, I think that's okay. So any errors? Nope, that's good. So let's click the search trigger now. But it doesn't actually focus in. Let's just see, is this, well, it is running. Oh, it might be because it's hidden. So it might be a delay in the DOM. Well, there is. So what we can do in that situation is set a little timeout function. Something like set timeout anonymous function. So we can run this. Basically, we're giving the DOM to kind of figure out that this area is available now. So we'll say something like set timeout function, focus the search, and maybe give it like something like 500 milliseconds. So we click, a few seconds later, or a few milliseconds later, we get this. Let's try and bring that down a bit. Let's halve that. Let's say 250 milliseconds. So click trigger. Yeah, that's a bit more instantaneous. How low could we get there though? Could we say 150 milliseconds? Yeah, that's pretty good, I think. Boom. So again, just a nice little, to have. It's not really, it's like a want more than a need. Click. There we go. So that's fine. So the next part is we need to hide the menu. Yeah, let's do that now. So we can do the same thing as we did with the search form wrapper. We can just add a class in called something like active or something like that. So let's do that. So once we click this menu, sorry, the search trigger, we're running the focus. First of all, we're adding the class to the search form wrapper. And let's copy and paste this and pop that there. So we'll do this to the menu as well. We'll add a class in here, so that'll fade that out. And of course, then we just focus the input. Okay, so a few different things going on in this little event lister. And that is called, let's create a new variable up here for the primary navigation. So let's say primary nav, and it is just primary nav, I believe. Let's have a look real quick. And it is, yeah, it is just primary nav. Okay, so let's replace that. So we're adding a class for search form wrapper, and we'll do the same for the primary nav. So we'll add something like, instead of active, I mean, it's already active now, we'll add an inactive class. Yeah, that makes sense, I think. So currently the nav is active. We click this search trigger, and then the menu should be inactive. Yeah, so let us do that now. Let's add in that class. So into our style sheet we go, and we look for primary nav. Yeah, so let's create a new rule down here called primary nav dot inactive. So we just want to kind of fade these out. So I'll go opacity is 0 and visibility is hidden. So let's see how that looks now. Actually, does the nav have any transition? It does not. Click. Yeah, so let's add a little transition in here. So just so it kind of fades out smoothly. Transition again. All 0.2 seconds seems to be the sweet spot. And ease in, out. So now we click the search trigger. Oh yeah, that looks a lot better. Let us refresh that again. That looks good. So now once we click this kind of close button, we need to obviously show the menu again. So let us do that. Back to our main.js file. As we have a close search function here, and we have this remove search form, which is just here, remove search form. What I'm going to do is use this function to create another rule. So search form wrapper removes the class of active, and we want to do the same for the primary nav. Primary nav. So instead of active, we want to make it the inactive class to make it active again. So I hope that makes sense. Document.elementID primary nav, remove the inactive class, which is set when we click this button here. And once we click close, it restores it, which is pretty nifty, I think. So that works quite nice. Let me just refresh again. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so we are getting there. So let's see what happens once we start kind of making this responsive here. So once we start minimizing the window, so we get to a point that's around 1050 pixels, and then it all kind of goes to pot. So about 1050 pixels, we're going to hide this nav now. So let's pop back into our style.css and create some MIDI queries. So I'm going to create kind of component-based MIDI queries. like I have done here for the top bar. Many ways to do this again. I could create kind of a whole area just to target, well, the whole website. So let's say if I created an area just for 1050 pixels, then I could bang everything in there. But I'm just going to create it component by component. So I'll create an area down here in the header, and let me just copy and paste these media queries here. So I'll copy and paste this and I'll insert it just below our header code and our primary navigation and stuff like that. So let's pop it in here. And that looks okay, I think. So 1000 pixels, let's say 1050, I think the number was. So let's say body has 1 pixel red. Once we go down to this size here, which it's already showing, yep, that's fine. So just to test that it's all linking up as per usual. So what I want to do, as I say, is once we get to a certain viewport size, is I'm going to hide the menu, and I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to say primary-nav is, again, opacity is 0. And the visibility is hidden. So we save that, and that's great. So as we only have our search trigger here, the menu is hidden. We do need to have a way to show that again. So we'll create a little hamburger area here. And let me just check what we actually have in our CSS. So yeah, we do have our hamburgers.css file, and I think that should be linked up in our header, which it is. So let's go ahead and add this in now to our header. So header, we've got a logo, we've got a primary nav, we've got our search trigger, and now we just need to add in our hamburger. So let's, yep, so we want it to go just to the right-hand side of this search icon here. Okay, so as I've been using these a few years, I'm pretty sure I know the code off by heart. I think it's, so div class, div ID is hamburger. We give it a class, okay, and give it a class of hamburger. We save that there. Let's have a little look. Yeah, that's working. So now we need to add in some little, well, some inner elements to form the hamburger. So let's say the inner is hamburger box, I believe. Class equals hamburger hyphen box. Save that and have a quick peek. Yep. And let me see. Then we just have a hamburger inner. Which looks good from here. And it's all fine. So yes, it is showing there, which is exactly what we want. Let me see. As I've just popped this in here to the header, I'm not sure. I don't think I do have any code for this just yet, which is fine. So I'm going to add this in now, because if we go full on desktop mode, it's going to be viewable straight away, which we don't want. We want to hide it. So in our CSS, just below the close search button, which is here, I'll create an area for this hamburger. And it's just here, search. So I'll bring this in a little bit. Okay, so hamburger. Let's target it first off. And let's say hamburger. Give it a display of none. So by default, it is hidden. Okay, let's remove that for the moment so we can tweak it. Yeah, so let us look into the flex property. And that looks all pretty lined up, apart from this search here. We do need to tweak that. Why is that? So the hamburger. Oh, I see. So the hamburger has some extra padding associated with it. Okie dokie. So let's remove that straight off anyway. Let's say something like padding 0. And that looks better. We do need, and the search is fine. So we need to tweak this little area here. So maybe instead of padding 0, we say something like padding 5 pixels just at the top, and everything else has 0 padding. Not quite, but we can always tweak it a little bit later. So let's move that down a bit. Let's say padding 1 rem. Yeah, I think that's pretty well lined up there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So let us remove that now for the moment. And let's pop back that display none property there. Okay, so let us move down the viewport a bit, minimize it here. So again, at 1050 pixels, we want this hamburger to show. So let's say something like hamburger display block. Yeah, that looks good. We'll need to tweak this here because this is obviously the mobile version. Yeah, okay, anyway, so 1050 pixels, we will see our hamburger and our search icon, which is exactly what we want. And let's make the search a little bit bigger because we're on mobile. So if I say something like search trigger, the font size currently is 2.2 rem. Let's bring that up to 3 rem and see how that looks. Font size 3 rem, save that. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So that's nicely in line there. Let's see the alignments now. What is causing that to push everything down? Okay, so we can tweak that in a little bit. I'm just going to work my way through the header first, the parent item. So currently it has a 3 rem padding top and bottom. When I jump down to 1050, I'd like to make that 1.5 or 15 pixels to coincide with the left and right margins, which is here. So let's do that now. So first off, we'll say header primary, padding 1.5 rem, or we can use pixels too, it doesn't really matter. So padding 1.5 rem top and bottom, and 0 for left and right. Save that. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so let's line these guys up now because they're a little bit too high. And again, if we kind of see how it's being shown here with flex, yeah. So click this little guy here, and let's say align items and bring everything down here. Align item center. So copy and paste this, pop back into our wrapper for the header, and let's pop this in here. So align items center. Let's see how that looks on desktop. Yep, pretty good. And mobile. Need to fix that. Yeah, this is a bit too low. So hamburger, yeah, the padding is too high on that. So once we hit 1050 pixels for the hamburger, let's say the padding is, actually no, let's do it on the desktop because it will inherit it there. Okay, so instead of 1 rem, let's say 0.5 rem or 0.4. Check the outline of the flex do. That looks pretty good, I think. Okay, looking good, looking good. Well, apart from this logo, but we can sort that out in a few. What I'd like to do also is, once we jump to mobile view, is the following. So when we hover over this search icon, we get this nice little background color, but that's really only applicable for the desktop view. I don't really want to see it on the mobile view. So what we're going to do is, to fix that. So what we're going to do is to only allow the hover of this icon here on desktop view. So something that's worked for me, and I've no reason to stop using it, is to basically just add in a little class on the body tag, just to say something like desktop. So desktop to me is anything greater than 1050 pixels, and this has been working fine. So I can say something like only hover over this span trigger if it has a body.desktop class before it. So I think I'll go this route again, and let's jump into our main.js and create a little function for this. So let's copy and paste our little commented area here and paste this at the very top. And we'll call this area something like set desktop class, something like that. Then we'll create a function called set desktop classes, and do this. So first off, we're going to use jQuery as it's installed, and we're going to say something like jQuery.window.on, and once the page loads and is resized, we're going to say, give it an anonymous function, and we'll say something like, let's create a variable called width. So as we're inside this little jQuery window object here, we can say something like jQuery window dot width. So just to get the size of the browser window. And now let's just test that real quick. So once the page loads, we need to obviously run this. Let's run it just here. So once the page loads, we get 947, which it is, and now it is 940 and so on. So that works quite nicely. So what we're going to do is say if width is less than 1050 pixels, document.body.classlist.add. Actually, sorry, we need to say remove because it will be added by default in below. So if width is less than 1050 pixels, document.body.classlist.remove, something like desktop view. Else, if we're on a desktop, a quote unquote desktop view, we will say to add it in. So we can say if width is less than 1050 pixels, remove the desktop view class, and if it's actually in desktop view mode greater than 1050 pixels, add this desktop view in. So as we're in kind of mobile view, it's been removed. If we go into desktop view, we'll see it here. So now that we've got that here, I'm going to, get rid of this console log first off. Now I'm going to go into our CSS. So we'll look for our search trigger. And instead of just search trigger hover, we'll say something like body dot desktop view. So this will only run if the body tag has a class of desktop view. Save that. And now if you hover over this, nothing happens. If we go into desktop view mode, and then it runs again. So I think that's a little bit better. So that's fine. We'll sort this logo out next, I think. So if I look at the inspector panel here, we can see that even though the primary navigation is quote unquote hidden, it's still very much in the viewport because we're only using the opacity and the visibility hidden. If we said something like display none, it would be gone. But because I want to kind of style this in a certain way and show it in a certain way, I'm quite happy to use these opacity and visibility rules here. But what I'm going to do is change the position to absolute because currently it's relative by default. So again, popping into our media query area, I'm going to say something like primary nav position absolute, save that. And now it's completely gone because it's taken out of the flow of the document. And now we have a pretty nice mobile area. We click that and it shows, and we haven't actually hooked up our navigation menu yet. But for the moment, I think things are looking pretty good. So first of all, actually, let's pop back into our index.html file and add this link in. So let's say href is just, yeah, let's just say that for the moment, or index.html. So if we click this, it brings us back to the homepage. Okay, so next up, I'm going to work on the search area. So actually, hang on a second. Hang on just 1 second. So we can see here there's a bit of an issue with the overlapping of the hamburger menu. And yeah, so probably what we just need to do there to fix that is, let's find it first, search form wrapper. Give it a Z index property of just 1 and hope for the best. Save that. Click it again, and that's fine. So that solves that little issue there. So yeah, next up is to sort this issue out on mobile with the search wrapper. So you can see here, we're minimizing the window, minimizing. And then again, we can't really see this button here, and it looks a bit messy, a bit wishy-washy. So we're going to sort that now to say something like, what are we at, 650, I don't know, say 600 pixels, something like that. We're going to completely remove this logo and make this full width. So what I like to do is currently this area, this search form wrapper is 400 pixels, which we probably need to make a little bit bigger, to be honest. So let's say 450 pixels. Yeah, that looks a bit better. Anyway, so what we probably need to do is say something like, once we get down to mobile view, we'll copy and paste this and we'll say something like, give it, well, first of all, let's give it an L border there. Click, okay. So we can see what I'd like to do is make it 100% width, but subtract the value of this logo. So the logo is currently 200 pixels, yeah. So I'll say something like width calc 100% minus 240. Let's see what that looks like, or maybe 220. So click it again. Yeah, probably a bit too, we need a bit more padding there. So we'll say 240, maybe 250 pixels. Okay, that looks good. And we will start minimizing this here. So the width is 100% of the total area here in the header, minus the width of the logo, plus a bit of padding around it. So in total, Actually, we could probably make that a tiny bit smaller, say 245 pixels. Yeah, that looks good. So if we keep minimizing this here, this works fine. And I think it looks a lot better. So we'll do this until we hit maybe 500 pixels, and then we'll just make it fully 100% width. But for the moment, that looks good. I'm going to create another media query now for this action. And I'll say, I think 500 pixels is a good starting point. So copy and paste this again. And as we go down the viewport from 1050 pixels, we'll go into 500 pixels, and we'll say we just want it to be 100% for the moment and see what that looks like. So we can see here, we're at 800 pixels, 700, 640, 562. And now once we hit 500, we can see here, it's 100% the width. We probably need to make it a little bit smaller because the close button is hidden. So let's say 100% minus something like 25 pixels. Oh no, made a little boo-boo there. So do it inside here. Say 25 pixels, click that, and that looks good. Obviously we have an issue with the logo, but we can sort that out in the next part. So yeah, once we get to this point here, 500 pixels, let's remove this logo entirely. Again, many ways to do this, but I'm going to use my main.js file to create a little function here for this. And we could probably put this in. Yeah, why not? Let's pop it in here to our search trigger. Again, this should probably be separated out a little bit, but as it's such a small website and small script, I've no problem popping it in here. But it's probably better practice to create our own little function here and then include this function in here. Anyway, so let's do that now. So as we've kind of created an area up here for this specific purpose to check the width of the window, we will copy and paste this down here. And we'll say something like jQuery window.onload resize. Yes, width again is the width. So we'll say if the width is less than 500 pixels, probably don't need those. So if the width is 500 pixels, I'll just add a console.log to say this, just to see if it's hooking up okay. Refresh that, go into our console, and nothing for the moment. Oh, what did I do? So if width is... So that is running. Let's do something here. If the width is less than 500, actually, hold on a second. What is the width size? So it is 500. Okay. Then what I need to do is move this up here. And there we go. So if I pull this menu out here, yeah, refresh that. And 500 now. So then that displays fine. Okay, that's exactly what we want. So greater than 500 here is exactly what we want. We want the menu to show and the logo. Anything below 500, and then we want the logo to disappear. Okay, so if the width is less than 500, I'm going to, I could just add in the style, sorry, the rule here, the little code here to say hide or add the class for the logo to fade out. But I might want to use that again in the future, the fade out kind of rule. So what I'll do is create a little function here called fade out logo. and create our function here for this. And we'll say something like document dot query selector, and we'll say header dot primary and target the logo, and we'll say class list dot add, and we could say something like inactive. So let's see if this works now. Elements. Okay. So click search. Actually, let's go below 500 pixels, which we already are. Click the search box or search trigger. And then where do we want? We want the logo to be inactive, which works fine. And now I need to create a little area for this, and I'll go up to logo. And I'll create something like logo dot inactive. Opacity is 0. Just like that. So if I refresh and we're greater than 500 pixels in the viewport, and then I scroll down here, it disappears. I do need to add a transition onto this as well, because it just kind of pops back out. So let's say all 0.2 seconds ease in out. Let's try that again. So yeah, that just fades out quite nicely. Now, we don't want it to fade out just like that on its own. We only want it to fade out if this search box is open. So in our main.js file again, we have this function linked up here. So we want another clause, not just a width is less than 500. We also want to say if the search is actually opened. So let's say the search wrapper here, search form wrapper, let's say if it actually contains this class that's active. So let's say right now it does, because it's opened. So we'll just check if this search box is actually open. So we'll say if width is less than 500 and search form wrapper dot class list contains, that's it. So if it contains the active class to only run on those two conditions there, then we'll fade out the logo, which is essentially just adding a class of inactive to it. So now we are at 468 pixels in our viewport and the logo is still there. But now if I click the search trigger, clearly nothing happens. So why is that? So the logo, the class is not getting added to that. Let's see why. Console. Okay, so there's no errors, which is good. Fade out logo. If the width is less than 500 and search form wrapper.classList contains active. Does it contain active? It does. Okay, so, it does work there when I resize it. Click. And then I have to resize it for it to work. Okay, so why is that? Let me see. So jQuery window.on load and resize. Let me just check here real quick. So another console.log, blah, blah, blah. Let's see what pops up here. So that works. I can get rid of the console.log. But if I click this, it's triggered. That should work. Nope. Let's have a look at their code. So, oh, I see. Okay. So what I need to do is actually run this code inside of our event lister when we click it. So let's pop this in here now. And let's say, yeah. So refresh that, click the search, and nothing happens. Okay, so what I'll probably have to do here is to add a little tweak in at the bottom. And basically, I'm just going to run this function again, and I'll use that by appending this resize function here. So jQuery window.unload resize function, and then add the resize in again. Save that, and hopefully, yes. Okay, great. So that works fine. Refresh again, and let's see how it looks here. Search is open once we get to 1050 pixels. Show that until we get to 500 pixels, and then it overtakes the whole area. Now, once we click the close search button here, we need to make the logo reappear. So let's create a fade in function, fade out in logo. So fade out logo and fade in logo. So we'll just reverse what we just did here. So instead of adding a class in, we'll just remove the inactive class, save that. So, well, we don't want it to appear here because it won't appear here because we're only triggering the search trigger. So we actually don't need this else statement also. So we need to concentrate down here, close search. So we're already running one function here called remove search form, which is just here. Now we obviously need to run this logo here to make the logo reappear. So fade in logo and save that. And now if we click to show the search form, click the close, and then it reappears, which is pretty good. So actually, yes, we do need the else statement. The joys of web development, lots of moving parts. So if the width is less than 500 pixels and search form wrapper contains active, so once those two conditions are met, we'll fade out the logo, or we'll fade in the logo if we're on desktop mode. So paste that in there. Click to show. Move the viewport down to 500 pixels or less than 500. Click it again and it shows. So what happens if we open up the viewport to desktop now, or even past 500 pixels, the logo shows again. Perfect. Okay, so I think we can box this area off now. I'm quite happy with that. Close that. Yeah, so that's working all as intended. So playing around here a bit with this search form, and I notice I need to change this little area here because by default, with the inspector panel, I can only go down to 500 pixels. But obviously, as we can see, that the logo is still present. So I need to say something like width is equal to, less than or equal to 500 pixels. So let's try that again. And now that displays fine. So show that there, get rid of that. And that all works quite nicely now. So just 1 pixel out, but massive difference. So I'm happy where we're at for the moment. I'm going to pause it here because I'm not sure what length this video is going to be by the time it's edited, but it's definitely going to be over an hour. So I'm going to leave it here. We'll pick up the last part, which is to show our navigation menu on mobile. So that will be in the next part and a final part for this little header area. So thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.